Her name was Yada. Even now he could picture her face despite the distance. As clear as the desert sky, she was the most gorgeous creature to grace the sands of Egypt. Standing upon the balcony of the palace, once regal with splendor, now a shell of its former self. She would lean against the hot stone and smile with a brilliance to challenge the sun itself. Her eyes, like gorgeous golden amber, would shimmer in the right lighting. Her dark hair cascading on her skin with a texture no satin or silk could ever match. And though she would wear makeup, jewels, and gorgeous clothing, none of it was needed. Her beauty was a gift of the gods, and her presence was only rivaled by that of a new day itself. How Timwa did love her. A foreigner from a land far to the south of Egypt, he had worked as a mercenary, traveling up into the ruins of Egypt hoping to find work. There he met the remnants of a near-dead people and a long-dead empire. Poor, weak, burnt and thirsty, Timwa had collapsed within the broken ruins of Thebes, the capital of what was once Egypt. As he teetered between life and death, a servant girl had run to him and tended to him, giving him water and food. When Timwa had asked why she had been so kind to an outsider, she explained it was not her generosity that brought her to him, but the will of her mistress, Yada Sobekneferu. Timwa was brought to her, and through her his wounds were treated, his appetite satisfied, and his thirst quenched. All she asked in return was for him to speak. The Egyptian peoples were tied to their lands, their culture, and their ruins. It was their sacred duty to preserve and protect what remained, so none had left these lands in almost 10 generations. She wanted to know of the world, or at least what Timwa could tell her, and he was happy to share. Day after day he would come to her bedchambers and speak to her. She would sometimes be on her balcony, watching the desert through her golden amber eyes. Other times she would be in the middle of bathing or reading, but she always insisted he stay and continue his stories. But most of the time, he would find her in bed, weak, with fever or fatigue. Yada was sickly and was prone to catching ill. It was of no fault of her own. She would tell him that she was simply born this way. She was born sickly. Her brother had always been the stronger one. The brother, the child favored by her father. That is why her brother abandoned the family name of Sobekneferu and renamed himself Neferka. He was a better candidate to assume the role of guardian, of king, of pharaoh. But none of these things mattered to Timwa. The one thing he cared for was the safety and health of his beloved Yada. His presence in the palace became known quickly to Neferka and his military of Magi. Neferka, wary of outsiders, considering throwing him out, Yara pleaded that he be allowed to stay. Pitying his sister's naive heart, he relented and allowed Timwa the chance to join his Magi Corps, if he could prove he was a capable warrior, of course. And he could. In fact, he fought with a will that baffled several of the Magi. When he entered the field of combat, he adorned himself with the mask of a crocodile, and he wore a hide pelt like the watery beast. Timwa explained that in the tribe he hailed from far to the south, it was believed that the strongest warriors could transform into crocodiles to destroy their enemies. Thus, many of the warriors in his tribe would adorn their body in the scales or hides of the leathery monsters. This earned him the nickname, the Scaled Beast, among the Magi, and for a time he was pleased with this. He was every bit the warrior that the Magi needed, which was good, for the time was coming that they would be needed. A month after joining the Magi, a stranger had come to the land of Egypt, and this time he had fled with a valuable relic, the scarab bracelet. Neferka was mad with rage and determined to retrieve it. When Timwa asked what it was explained to him the true nature of the relic. It was an artifact forged only for the pharaoh's lineage. The user would be granted incredible powers and the ability to bring new growth, life, and rejuvenation to a land, its people, or even a nation. However, any other than the pharaoh's line that touched the bracelet would invoke a horrible curse. The curse is not what Timwa was interested in, but a relic that could restore life and rejuvenate. His thoughts turned to the ever-sick and fatigued Yara, his beloved, who even now slept wearily in her bedchambers, almost oblivious to the trouble her nation now faced. Timwa rushed to Neferka, pleading that he be allowed to join him in his quest to recover the bracelet. Neferka accepted him, as well as an army of his loyal Magi. Before leaving, Timwa ran to tell Yada the good news. He would return with the bracelet. He would beg Neferka to use it on her and heal her, to make her well again, to remove her illnesses. Yara's eyes widened at this news, and she gripped Timwa's hand fearfully. She warned him not to leave her, to not cross the sea to the foreign lands of Heathmoor. He may never return from them, and even if he did, there was no promise of salvation in the bracelet. Neferka himself had sworn never to use it, believing it to be a tool for the weak, a quick and easy solution to a problem that required more patience and time to earn. She did not want a bracelet to make her well. She just wanted him. She needed her beloved soldier by her side to continue telling her stories. But Timwa was adamant. "I will go and make you well, my desert rose. And when you are, we shall be together always, my queen of the sand." Unable to dissuade him, she kissed him and wished him safety and fortune. The battle for the bracelet was long, but clear. The lands of Heathmoor had been scarred by the curse of the scarab. Frogs pooled across the lands, and the waters were crimson blood. Livestock were dead and decaying in the streets, and corpses either lay scattered and unmoving, or were still alive but had more in common with the dead than the living. Bolthorn, the Jarl who had stolen the bracelet, entered into one-on-one combat with Neferka. A vicious and cunning warrior, to be sure, and truly worthy to bear the title, but the curse had sapped him of strength and vitality. It had broken his spirit and warped his mind. Neferka was seasoned, clear of mind, and fit in body. After hours of relentless combat, Neferka finally defeated Bolthorn, and then used the Pharaoh's authority to lift the curse that Bolthorn had foolishly inflicted upon Heathmoor, removing the bracelet, and finally carrying it away. With his relic returned to him, Timwa and the other Magi were told to scatter around the land, ensuring that no others like Bolthorn tried to rise up and kill him. For though he had stolen from Neferka and Egypt, Neferka still wished to honor the past friendship between him and Bolthorn, and did not want him dead by the hand of some hopeful vagrant. But Timwa, even in the midst of battle, never took his eyes far from Neferka and the scarab bracelet. 3 nights later, in the camp of the Magi, many of his comrades were discussing the sights they had seen in Heathmoor. Not just the Vikings, but there were men who fought with curved blades and dwelled in the marshy lands with more water than they had ever seen. There were strange warriors who fought with sticks, hooks, and fire. And there were also warriors with bodies of steel who could not be pierced by mere arrows. The stories were fascinating, and surely would please Yada when Timwa returned, but he could not return empty-handed. He had made a promise. He approached Neferka, who was sitting by himself and looking at the sea towards home. "When shall we embark again, sire?" Timwa asked. "In time," he replied. "We exhausted our funds to reach this land, and we must find a reliable means to get home, and that may take time. Go and join our comrades. Many are discussing ways to earn their money and fortune by fighting as mercenaries in these lands, or by helping the local peoples. Perhaps you could join them. They could use your skills." "Sire," Timwa urged, "when we get home, I have a request. Please heal your sister." Neferka looked back at Timwa curiously. "With the power of your bracelet at your command, you could save her. Make her well again." "You wish me to heal Yada?" he asked curiously. "Why? What is my sister to you?" "She is more precious than water, and more beautiful than oasis," Timwa cried honestly. "I would marry her if she will have me. Please, my king, heal the woman we both love." Neferka looked at the pleading Timwa and then looked away. "I cannot." Timwa looked up at him in disbelief. "Why not? The power of the bracelet could easily corrupt us all, as it did Bolthorn," Neferka growled. "True, it will not release a curse on our people, but it is not mine to use in any respect. Our people and lands must be healed through our own hard work and honor, not through a tool of the gods. This bracelet will be returned to its tomb and left there, never to be spoken of again." "But what of Yara? It could save her life if Yara is to be taken by the gods." That is her fate. I cannot change that. Can't. Or won't! Suddenly, Timwa was on his feet, hands going to his fan blades. Neferka rose as well, taking a dangerous stance. Neferka, I followed you because I wanted to save the woman I love. She's the only piece of beauty left in that dust bowl you call a home, and you would see her rot away in her bed like the rest of your city. It's no wonder you're no pharaoh. You lack the backbone to rule. You're out of line, Medjai. If you do not wish to use the power for yourself, Neferka, then at least give it to your sister. She is also of the line of pharaohs and could rule just as efficiently. She could heal herself and begin to heal our home. It is not hers to wield. I am the eldest and favored by our father. Our father knew that when the time came, Yara would be dead when with our ancestors. Timwa's heart stopped. His eyes widened and his teeth clenched. You fear her, he hissed, beginning to sound like the beast for whom he was armored. You will not have a rival to your place on the throne. You hide away her only means of salvation because you don't want her to usurp you. Admit your greed, Neferka! Admit your avarice! I will not defend my honor from a foreign dog, Neferka snapped. The low hiss from Timwa grew ever more dangerous. I am no dog. In my tribe, we are beasts of another sort. We are patient beasts, content to wait and watch, to observe, to lurk just beneath our quarry. And when we strike, we do not stop. We do not let go. We drag down our prey and devour it without mercy, without compassion, and without feeling. And I have been patient, and I have been observing you. You may be my leader, Neferka, but do not mistake me for your dog, or I swear I will destroy you to save the things that I love. All the Medjai had stopped their talking and were watching as their leader now squared off with the scaled beast Timwa. None moved, as some were of like mind to Timwa. Neferka was no fool. He knew how the Medjai felt about the bracelet. If such a powerful artifact could heal their lands, why did they remain kings that lived as mere beggars? Why should they serve when they could rule? Why did Neferka hold back? Was it really because he was just clinging to his honor, or was he truly afraid of his sister? Timwa had struck a nerve, and now the Medjai were divided, unsure who to trust. You feel strongly about this, Timwa, don't you? Neferka challenged. Well, whether you're right or not is irrelevant. Perhaps I don't care for my sister as much as you do, or in the ways you do, or perhaps you're more foolish than you care to admit. In either case, I still am in charge of this expedition, and I hereby deem you a traitor to the throne of Egypt. Be gone from my sight. You are unwelcome in my kingdom. Your kingdom, Timwa challenged right back, holding up a single finger. It is not yet yours, Neferka. As you said yourself, you lack the means to return yet. You are not the only one who has means to save Yada. Perhaps this land holds more secrets that you know not of. And I will scour this land. I will learn of its people and their secrets. I will find a way to save my beloved. And when she is restored, I will see her sit on the throne as Queen of Egypt. And you best pray to the gods you return to Egypt before I do, false king! Timwa turned and stormed away, with nothing but his weapon slung over his shoulder and his crocodile hood over his head. You are naive to think it's that simple, Neferka roared back. Are you truly prepared to risk war with me in this cursed land just so you might one day save a girl doomed to die? As I said, Neferka, the crocodile is a patient beast. Either Yara will rule as Queen of Egypt, or I will avenge her death by spilling your blood. And in either case, you should tread carefully around me, false king, or you will never see the sands of Egypt again. Timwa would not meet Neferka again for many months. He traveled across Heathmore seeking answers, praying to find a healer or some kind of artifact that might save Yada. He came to the fortress of Horkos in the northern lands, but Astria had no gifts to offer him. Instead, she pursued the vengeful beast with her own Order of Horkos. Her hit team was met with fierce resistance, and only a handful escaped to tell Astria of the vicious predator they had encountered. Timwa also met with the Chimera Alliance, and they sympathized with his plight, but they would not willingly share the secrets of Draconite and its healing properties with a foreigner like him. Dejected, afraid, angry, Timwa wandered the land searching everywhere for a means to save Yara. He prayed she still lived, prayed she was still waiting for him. He would return to her, he would save her, and he would make her queen as she deserved, and they would finally be able to stand together under the sun, holding on to nothing but one another. In Egypt, new stories reach Yada, that throughout Heathmore there is a beast that wanders, a great and vengeful predator. It asks very little and seeks only answers to questions. But few provide it with answers, and more still refuse to leave him in peace. Woe to those who recklessly cross the silent and patient beast. For the crocodile is swift and merciless, his jaws unforgiving, and his wrath limitless. But Yara takes comfort in one single aspect of the story. The crocodile does not fight for himself, but for something greater still. And what could be greater than the beast, but the beauty for whom it serves?